Bob Crane had it all in the 1960s. With his flawless smile and quick wit, he captivated audiences playing Colonel Robert Hogan, the smart commander in the popular sitcom Hogan's Heroes. Behind the scenes, he was equally affable, with a witty sense of humor and a warm personality to match. But although the world perceived him as the charming TV star on camera, the man behind the scenes was disintegrating in ways few could have dreamed. What started out as a career founded on laughter would ultimately end in deceit, scandal, and a violent death that would leave more questions than answers. Ascension to fame. Prior to television fame, Bob Crane had already established himself as a radio personality in Los Angeles. He was better known as the man with 1,000 voices and had a morning drive show at KNX where he had interviewed all the stars from Marilyn Monroe to Bob Hope and Charlton H. His ability to improvise so rapidly and his assurance were favorite traits among the Hollywood elite. Even Walt Disney himself referred to him as the fastest wit in the West. Radio success paved the way for him in acting. One day in 1961, a legendary TV writer named Carl Reiner dropped in on Crane's radio show and went on to invite him to be a guest on the Dick Van DJK show, playing a philandering husband. The one part led to more, a recurring role as a cheerful Golicky dentist on the Donna Reed show. In 1965, Crane's agent called and sent him a script for a new TV series titled Hogan's Heroes. He initially assumed it was a war drama, not aware that it was a comedy featuring Allied prisoners of war outwitting their goofy German captors. Even with the outlandish premise, Hogan's Heroes were a huge hit. Crane's Colonel Robert Hogan portrayal made him a household name. The show ran for 6 seasons from 1965 to 1971, earning him 2 Emmy nominations and turning him into one of television's most recognizable stars. His face appeared on billboards, lunchboxes, and magazines across the country. For millions of viewers, he was the smiling, clever leader who always had a plan. On screen, Crane was living the dream. But even in the midst of his glory, those who were around him started to notice changes. His private life was strained. His taste for adventure increased, and his actions off-camera signaled an obsession that would eventually eat him up. For the time being, however, all the world witnessed was the laughter, the hidden double life. Behind the charm and smile that turned Bob Crane into a household name, there existed a reality vastly different. During the mid-1960s, his photography interest started turning personal. Initially, he enjoyed playing with cameras, taking portraits, and trying out new video gear. But gradually, the camera went beyond being a hobby. It became a core part of his inner world. The break came when Hogan's Heroes cast mate Richard Dawson introduced him to John Henry Carpenter, a Sony Electronics salesman of video equipment. Carpenter had strong connections in Hollywood and gave Crane a way into the new technology. The two became fast friends, sharing a passion for recording gear. Carpenter went as far as to assist him in installing equipment in hotels on the road. What began as a friendship forged in curiosity later turned into behavior that concerned those closest to Crane. The two started hanging out in bars and nightclubs with Crane's fame bringing all sorts of attention their way. He habitually referred to Carpenter as his manager, and the two became inseparable, traveling and spending hours testing new gadgets together. Whereas some were amused at this point, others were upset by how much of a dependency Crane appeared to have on his incessant filming. Co-workers sensed that he was getting sidetracked, more concerned with the side hobby than with the work that had previously consumed him. The tension transferred into his life offset. His marriage to and Tertzian, whom he met and dated in high school, and is the mother of his 3 children, ended in divorce after over 20 years. He went on to marry Patricia Olson, actress who appeared before Hogan's Heroes viewers as Secret Valdez. But the same problems pursued him. Even while filming Disney's 1973 family film Supered, Crane's behavior offset was said to have caused executives concern, damaging his reputation within the industry. By the late 1970s, Crane was no longer the television star he once was. He worked steadily in stage productions and appeared determined to re-establish his career. Meanwhile, however, his bond with Carpenter had become strained. Crane told friends that he needed to move on, that he had old ways to shed and new things to begin. But by the summer of 1978, it already was too late. The Scottsdale murder. By June of 1978, Bob Crane was residing in Scottsdale, Arizona, appearing on stage in a stage comedy entitled Beginner's Luck at the Windmill Dinner Theater. At the age of 49, only 2 weeks shy of his 50th birthday, he appeared to want to change. According to friends, he had been talking about divorcing Patricia Olson and dissolving his friendship with John Carpenter. He wanted to start fresh. But before he had a chance to make that move, his life suddenly and tragically ended. On the afternoon of June 29th, co-star Victoria and Barry stopped by to visit Crane when he didn't show up for a lunch date. In his Winfield Place apartment, she encountered a scene that would shock Hollywood for decades. Crane was found dead in his bed. The head injuries were extensive, and police suspected that whatever object caused them might have been a camera tripod. A piece of electrical cord lay next to him, but it was not what killed him. What bothered detectives the most was how little had been out of place in the room. Nothing was missing, and there was no sign of forced entry. Whomever it was someone Crane trusted to let in, or possibly someone who made it in through the front door after he slept. That short list of suspects fast pointed at John Carpenter. He had traveled to Phoenix a few days before to hang out with Crane. The two shared dinner the previous evening and even watched some of their private tapes together, according to reports. Carpenter said he went back to his own motel afterwards, but witnesses later disputed his timeline. The crime scene also uncovered a secret side of Crane's private life. Police discovered cameras, tripods, tapes, and cables around the apartment, packed with recordings that shocked the public. The star of Hogan's Heroes was instantly reimagined in headlines as a man fighting personal demons. For his family, the revelation was shattering. To investigators, it was both evidence and a distraction. The gear connected Crane's personal universe to Carpenter, but the prurient quality of the evidence made the pursuit of truth more difficult. One thing was apparent from the outset, however, was that this was not a random break-in. It was personal. The investigation and trial. The Scottsdale Police Department was not completely ready to deal with a significant case in 1978. They did not have a specialized homicide unit, and mistakes made at the crime scene would haunt investigators for decades. Detectives gathered tapes, photos, and recording devices from Crane's apartment, but evidence handling was spotty. Friends and even relatives, such as Crane's oldest son, Robert, were permitted to enter the apartment prior to its being secured in an orderly fashion, leaving fingerprints, hair, and footprints that made the scene even more complicated. In addition to these problems, suspicion immediately fell upon John Carpenter. He had been residing in the area, had been with Crane the previous evening, and his rented automobile had smudges of blood on it that were the same type as Crane's. They typed at the time when DNA testing had not yet been invented, and the typing of blood alone was insufficient to convict. Without a weapon or fingerprints, the Maricopa County District Attorney refused to press charges. Carpenter went back to Los Angeles, but his reputation was forever tainted. For over 10 years, the case lay dormant. Then in 1990, investigators Barry Vassell and Jim Raines opened the files. New developments in DNA testing provided them with hope. They re-examined the evidence and found a previous picture of Carpenter's car interior that seemed to depict a biological fragment. The original samples were misplaced, but this was sufficient for prosecutors to proceed. In 1992, John Carpenter was arrested and officially charged in relation to Crane's murder. The trial, which started in 1994, was like a television courtroom drama. The prosecution maintained that Carpenter, enraged over Crane's choice to terminate their friendship, acted in a fit of rage. They had the blood evidence, the past between the two men, and Crane's son, Scotty, testifying that his father